everyone. Welcome to Being Becoming. My name is Micaiah, and today we have a very special guest, the beautiful, intelligent, compassionate Miss Adria Neal.
Dang, girl. All those things. Hey,
So,
everybody.
our discussion today is going to center around albinism. Adria, I'm very excited about having this discussion with you because I've known you for over 20 years now. Whew, we get old. And I don't think we've ever had an in-depth conversation like this. So I'm excited that you're here. I'm ready to have this conversation. So thank you for taking time out of your day to have this conversation with me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we've talked a little bit like here and there, but we haven't had like a, sit down and like fully flesh out everything. So it'll be good.
Right. So as far as anyone who is out there and is watching, please engage in the conversation in the comment section below. Let me know what future videos you're interested in me covering. Remember, these topics are about promoting self-growth and reflection. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out on all of the future videos coming up. So welcome again to Being Becoming. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so Adria, when I first asked you to do this interview about this specific topic, what were your first initial thoughts?
Well, to be honest, I knew you was probably gonna ask me just because I know you. Like when you were telling me what you wanted for your channel, that you wanted it to be a place for personal growth, I was like, and you were just laying out everything. I was like, she's going to ask me to talk about albinism. I know.
You knew I had something up my sleeve, too.
Yeah, I know you. I know you. It's not just a casual conversation. But anyways, and honestly, I was totally open to it. Like that's always been something that I've shared about it in the past here and there, but not in a form exactly like this. And especially now, I'm feeling more open and more willing and actually wanting to have these type of conversations and just to share my story and hopefully encourage other people in their journey and just let them learn and understand more about me and about other people with albinism and what that journey looks like, because it's definitely unique. So yeah,
you kind of spoke to this a little bit, but I know you say you talked about it in the past and that this journey is really unique, but why is it important for you to share? Why do you feel like you want to highlight this?
I think it's important because, like I was saying, it's a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that, it's really rare. It's like there's like 1 in 20,000 people in the US that have albinism. And also I'm a firm believer on a lot of the times that when we have division in the world, when we have rejection, all of those things, sometimes it just comes from people don't understand and they don't take the time to understand. So, even different mindsets that we have, having a conversation actually breaks down some of the barriers. So that's why, I think it's important to talk about.
Before we dive deeper into the conversation, I do have to shout out my mom. She watched my last video and she said I wasn't moving enough. My shoulders weren't moving. That was her comment. So, Mom, I'm having my shoulders for you.
Right. I'm going to have to move too because she's going to give me critiques. She's got my number. She'll probably call.
Okay. So, I think we should probably start off with what is the definition of albinism? What is it?
Okay. So albinism is a genetic disorder. It is a generational thing. So it's basically anybody that knows their sophomore biology when we learned about recessive and dominant traits. So albinism is a recessive trait that is passed down. So for example, my parents, they do not have albinism, but they both would have carried a recessive trait, and then that would have caused me to have albinism. Basically, it's just the gene that distributes and produces melanin is defective, so that it affects your hair, your skin, your eyes. People with albinism, their eyes don't develop properly. So we have nystagmus, meaning our eyes move back and forth. Some people are legally blind. Some people are severely farsighted, severely nearsighted. We're sensitive to light too.
How common? Can you talk about any like specific statistics? Like how common is it?
Yeah, in the U.S., it's like 1 in 20,000. It can be it's different in other areas like Africa. I think it's like 1 in 5,000, and I think that's mostly attributed to like intermarriage. So people that marry, you know, a distant cousin or something like that. Usually, we marry people that are you from a different family tree than us in the States, so it doesn't pass down like as much.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so shifting gears, let's talk a little bit about your history. So when did you first like self-identify or recognize that you were albino?
Yeah. So I was about 4 and I recognized something was different. I didn't know what. I just remember coming up to my mom one day and being like, Mom, is something wrong with me? Am I adopted? And I kind of remember her tearing up a little bit, but saying, No, there's nothing wrong with you. You look like your great grandmother, which from every description that I've heard of my great grandmother, she had albinism. So my mom wasn't lying, but she also didn't want to tell me everything, especially at that young age. Like she didn't think I'd be able to handle it. She thought I would isolate myself from other people if I knew that I had there was something a little bit different about me. So she didn't say anything. But I already knew, like I always knew that there was something different. And then I think I started like using the term more once I got to middle school and in high school too. So now of course I use the term all the time, but I didn't have language for it when I was younger. But that came at an older age for sure.
And talking about language, are there specific words that we should be using when discussing or having conversations, either with people who have albinism or conversations just to educate ourselves in general? Is there certain like words we should be using and words we shouldn't be
Yes, I think it also depends on the person. Some people don't mind being called albino.
using?
Some people do. They would rather be called a person with albinism because they feel like when you call them albino, makes them less of a human, like makes them more like a it. Um, I I do prefer being called a person with albinism, but I don't mind being called albino as well. But I know that really does bother some people. But I think that's the main thing. I mean, there's other things that I could say, like when you're in an interaction with someone that has albinism, um, just be careful about the way that you say things. Um, be sensitive, and if you want to have an honest conversation, if they're your friend or you know them, that is totally fine. But to ask a stranger and some really intimate details about their life, that can be really difficult. I think I'm much more comfortable with it now. It was really hard for me at first, to when strangers would come up to me and ask me really like intimate things, or but now I'm a lot more comfortable with it. I'm okay with it. It does come with it, like it really does. It happens pretty frequently, honestly. It used to happen more. It doesn't happen as much as it did, but it's something that I'm more used to happening. And now I kind of see it as more of an opportunity to educate, to share my testimony so that people can know like that, even if you have something that is different, or you were created a little bit differently, like there's beauty in it. It's not this negative thing. Sometimes I think people would even treat me like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, or like, how could you get over this? And it's like, of course I can tell you my story and I'm totally open to doing that. And I love who I am, so I don't really see it as like anymore as like a negative thing.
So let's go back to the moments in your life. Take me through some moments that really stick out to you outside of the initial moment when you were 4?
Yeah. So there were definitely some significant moments, mostly when I got to middle school. Elementary school, me and you went to the same elementary school.
Yeah.
By the way, for everyone watching, that's why we know each other for 20 years.
Yeah.
But anyways, and we had a really great experience in elementary school for the most part. No one really treated me different. Maybe it started a little bit like 4th and 5th grade, you know, we're getting a little bit older. But like for the most part, I had a lot of friends, a great community when I was in elementary school. So the most of the like memories that I have, or the things that really were difficult for me, happened when I got to when I got to middle school. So one of the things, like once I got to 6th grade, I don't know if I knew like what to expect completely, because a lot of the students that came, of course, came from my elementary school as well. But middle school is completely different, and I was I was not ready.
Right.
But so one of the things that would happen when I was in 6th grade, I would get off the bus. I would sit in the cafeteria. No, it was the auditorium. And we would wait and for like the bell to ring so we could go to our first class. And we would be like lined up in the rows of like our buses. So I would sit with all the people on my bus, and then the bus behind us, and then the bus in front of us. So there was a group of kids that were from a separate bus than me, and they would sit behind me. And every day they were saying something. It was pretty bad. At one point they told me, they would almost act like I was contagious. Like they would try to avoid me. If that one of them accidentally touched me, they would like freak out. At one point they started calling me demon child. So yeah, that was, those moments were definitely significant. Also my 7th grade year, it was pretty difficult. I went through a lot of bullying on the bus, a whole lot. One specific thing, that's the year that someone told me to kill myself. I'm trying to think. There were other things for sure. When I was on the bus, people, they would just pick at me, put things in my hair. It was almost constant. So much so that I might have forgotten stuff. but yeah, those years were definitely the most difficult. Even when I got to high school, it was difficult, but it wasn't. I started to kind of come into my own more, and people would say things, but I had a good community again too. Like I had my friends there. In middle school, I had a couple of friends, but I felt more alone. So like there were things that would happen, like someone one time like would scream. They were screaming, like they were on the bus and I was walking past, and they screamed, "She's albino!" like so loud. So things like that would happen. Someone like whispered in my ear as they were walking past me. I was like talking to somebody else, and they like whispered like albino in my ear. There were people that one time they followed me, like I was going to talk to one of my teachers about something, and they saw me walking down the hallway, and they like followed me and stood outside of the door and just like stared and laughed and everything. Yeah, there's definitely more, but those are the ones that are coming to mind right now.
Right. I mean, that age, that age is just so hard, going into middle school and trying to come into your own, and then having kids who are literally bullying you. That's what it was, bullying.
Yeah.
Must have been so hard. So like, I mean, me personally knowing you, I know you as a friendly, wonderful person, bubbly personality, and I know that's coming across right now in this video. So how were you able to even persevere through something like that? Like the comments, someone telling you to go kill yourself. Like in middle school, that's so much for someone who's going through puberty. So how
Yeah.
were you able to overcome that and persevere?
Yeah. It was the Lord. Like I have no idea. I can't even tell you how it worked. It was just, it was the Lord. Like there were nights where I did think about killing myself, and I would fall asleep and then wake up the next morning. I had my sister, of course. She wasn't in in school with me. She was in high school at that point. But she was always there. So I could come home and cry. I would talk to her. She would give me advice. She would just comfort me. So those things for sure were really key. And also just like I was always a pretty resilient person, even when I was in elementary school. Like I was always just try to be strong as much as I could be. And my parents, I mean, they taught me how to endure. That's one of the things that I love about the family that I grew up in. Like we went through a lot as a family just in general, and we were taught how to be resilient. So those things that usually may have, hurt someone else to the point that they may have done something, it didn't affect me as much. And even when it did, like the Lord would just step in. Like it was supernatural sometimes. Like I said, like I would be I'm thinking about ways to kill myself, and I would fall asleep. And yeah, so there's him.
Well, Adria, I am so happy just that you were able to persevere through that. That again, like you said, your parents taught you to be resilient, and that you were resilient. I mean, your story's just bravery. That's what it is. So going back to those individuals, I do want to ask you a question about them. I'm assuming you said the bus and car rider line, that it was pretty consistent, the individuals who were bullying you,
Yeah.
and kind of consistent on a day-to-day basis when you went to school. Being older now, have you been able to, I do want to say, have you been able to forgive in a sense? And then do you feel like you've come to terms with what happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yes, I would say yes to both questions. Have I come to terms with what happened? Um, yeah, I definitely have. I definitely see the fruit in it, the growth that came from it. Um, and it was difficult, but it did teach me a lot. Like I learned that I couldn't find my identity in anything else but the Lord. Like other people didn't really understand me. They made snap judgments about me. They thought I was sometimes a little bit less than human, honestly. And so I couldn't find a place other than from the Lord. Like a lot of my life, I think, especially during that time, but even after, I would enter like new environments, and I would almost like try to make sure it was safe to exist in this space. Like I would almost wait for other people to give me permission to be okay, to feel accepted. And as I got older, I stopped doing that, because first of all, the Lord made me, and all of everything that exists on this earth is because of him. So
Right.
of course I have permission to exist. Like I don't need anyone else to tell me if it's okay for me to take up space here. Um, what was the second question? I almost forgot. Well, I did forget.
In your answer, I almost done forgot to. Let me.
I know you asked me to. You asked me
I
if
know.
I had forgiven.
Yes, and if
And
you come to terms.
if I come to terms with it. Yeah. So yes, I definitely think I've come to terms with everything, and I don't hold a grudge against anyone that said anything or did anything. If anything, it all things really do work together for good. It really did empower me. I realized that, like I was saying, like my identity had to come from the Lord. It couldn't come from anything else. And now I'm really finding the beauty in who I am. Like who I am, the way that he created me points to the beauty of who he is. And as far as forgiving, I have forgiven. That was definitely, it's not the easiest thing. It was definitely a journey of doing that. But I saw that the importance of it, because it's true. Like when you don't forgive, you are hindering yourself. You're keeping yourself in that same place that you were. And but when you do forgive, you release that power that those people had over you, or those words had over you. It doesn't have the same power over you anymore. And so there were times where I would have to say, like, over and over again, like, I forgive this person, I forgive that person, I forgive them for doing this or whatever. And then one day, I was doing that for a while, for probably a couple years, every so often, when those thoughts would come, when I would think about it, when I would get angry, I would just choose to forgive. And then one day I was actually in this like counseling session. It was probably like 4 years ago. Yeah. And one of the lady that was kind of facilitating the session, she was like, you need to forgive. You're resisting. You want to hold on to, what happened, and you want to hold on to the grudge of what these people did. And I said, well, I want to forgive, but I don't know how. Like, and so she said, look at Jesus. So like I close my eyes and I just see this picture in my head of Jesus on the cross. And I just, like, I'm listening to the Lord, like asking him, show me how to forgive. And the cross really is that picture of forgiveness. It's God forgiving and dying for the whole world, for the sins of the world. And so I have my eyes closed and I'm looking at Jesus. And I just see this, I'm just looking at the gash that's in his side. And I just hear the Holy Spirit saying to me, this is for you. This was for you. And then I'm looking at his legs and they have all of these scars. And I hear the Lord say, this is for the people that sinned against you. Mm-hmm. And after he said that, like all of this like weight just lifted off of me. I just started smiling during this session. I just started smiling, like, because it was that revelation of like he paid for what happened, and his sacrifice, what he did, is good enough. It's good enough for me to release these people. It's good enough for me to forgive.
Girl, I'm telling you right now, I gotta commend you. Like, I want to be commending you this whole interview right now.
Girl.
Like, for you to be because forgiveness is hard.
Yeah.
And to like accept things that have happened in your past, and to even that story you just told me about realizing that, like, hey, God forgave us, so I have to forgive these people because look what he had to go through. Like, I just gotta commend you, because not everyone can do that. Like, it's a hard process.
Yeah.
So
it's beautiful though. It really is.
Right. So
there's freedom on the other side.
We just gotta make it over.
Yeah.
So for the crowd, obviously I know how you identify, but you've talked a lot about identity and things of that nature. Can you tell the audience how you actually identify, and then what experiences you've had that have really helped you come into your own?
So, I mean, of course I have albinism, but I'm Black. Like, my family is Black. That's my culture. That's the blood running through my veins. My ancestors were from Africa. So yeah, I identify as Black, yeah.
Okay, and then what experiences have you had, whether it be with your race or just anything that you want to kind of put on the board, that have really help you come into like your own identity? Okay,
well, I'll share a few. So there were definitely some moments that helped me just accept who I am. They were difficult in general, but looking back, I'm glad for all of those experiences. So the two that are coming to mind, which is probably more, honestly, but one of them was when I was in college. There was this girl that was in one of my classes, and after our class was over, it was like the first week of the class. Maybe we may have had like one class, and this was maybe the second class. So after the class was over, she came up to me and she said, "Hey, do you have albinism?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And she said, "So do I." And that was like the first time that I like met someone, like face to face, had a conversation with a stranger that had albinism. And it kind of freaked me out, to be honest. It had nothing against her or anything. But I was still going through my process. I think I was a sophomore in college. So I had just gotten out of high school. And of course there were things that happened there. And I mean, there's things that happened in college, there's things that happen, now. But was just going down that like healing journey. And seeing her it was difficult because it was like I was looking in a mirror, like I was facing me, and I didn't want to deal with any of that. So I was just kind of praying and like talking to the Lord about this class, and I wanted to drop it just because I wanted to hide. I didn't want to look at that. And by that I don't mean her. I didn't want to look at me and the things that had happened. I didn't want to be reminded of any of that. And the Lord told me to stay in the class, and I was like, I cannot do this, Lord. Like this is a huge step for me to be okay with seeing myself every day. But like, honestly, it was one of the best decisions. It made me comfortable with it even more, with like having more conversations, with talking openly about it, with talking to the Lord about it, with just not trying to avoid what happened.
Right. So was seeing or knowing that she also had albinism, was that kind of a reflection for you of like where you were in your process with accepting?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And then I think I also had developed a habit of, you go through your day and you don't really think about like your skin tone unless somebody brings it up, or unless it's like there, you don't really think about it. So like I said, I had developed a habit of just avoiding, just trying to do life as normal, and just not even talking about it, or at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so having her in the class, it, like I said, it made me like be comfortable with having those conversations. It made me look in the mirror at myself and start to, stop avoiding and rejecting myself, and start to actually love and accept myself. Also, another thing, doing the Miss Black USA pageant. So I was Miss Black Kentucky 2016, for anyone that doesn't know. Yeah. And actually, when the Lord put it on my heart to do that pageant, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I am not healed from any of this. I'm just going to be putting myself out there for the world to see and to judge me. And I'm not completely confident in who I am. How can I do this? And so, like, throughout the whole pageant, I think my platform was building a positive self-image. So I would go to different organizations. I would partner with different clubs, and I would talk about my story. Mm-hmm. And that is huge. It really is. Like, sharing about what happened, sharing about how you are still overcoming, the steps that you've taken and how you are still overcoming. It was a huge step for me. It was hard to be like, I'm going to put myself out there, and I might get negative feedback. I might get positive feedback. I don't know what's going to happen, but it really did help. Like, we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. Like, every time we declare who Jesus is in our situation, we are taking power back from all of those hardships that we went through. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely saying it and sharing was a huge thing for me. Also, like when I said that it was really difficult just to say yes, looking back, I always go back to the story of the woman with the issue of blood. That one has always helped like comfort me and give me some understanding. So with that woman, she was bleeding for 12 years, and she was tucked away from society. Like, she was considered dirty, and she hears that Jesus is coming, and she leaves that area that she was hiding in, and she he has a crowd around him, and she goes through the crowd, and she's like, I just want to touch the hem of his garment. And I always like imagine it like her sneaking through all these people that have thought, all these crazy things about her, have thought that she was dirty, have avoided her. She's like pressing her way to Jesus. And so she touches his clothes, he says, he stops the whole crowd basically and says, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are like, "What are you talking about? Who touched you? There's people everywhere." And he said, "Who touched me?" And it says, like, seeing that she was no longer hid, which was it's huge. Like, seeing that she was no longer hidden, like in shame, she fell to the ground and she said, "I did it." And he looks at her and he says, "Daughter." And that's just the way, it's just such a good example of who the Lord is. Like, in front of all of these people that have said all of these crazy things about her, that didn't want to look at her, touch her, thought, like I said, thought she was dirty, thought that she needed to be tucked away from the rest of society. He legitimizes her.
Mm-hmm.
He dignifies her in front of everyone. So in those moments, like looking back at some of those moments where he told me to do, like, for example, the pageant, like putting myself out there in that way, like it was a moment to reclaim like who I am, and for the Lord to dignify me, for the Lord to bestow his identity on me in front of the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just who he is. So yeah.
So, kind of shifting gears a little bit, I mean, thank you so much for sharing your story. For the educational purposes of this, what are some common misconceptions about albinism?
There's a lot. Some people think that people with albinism can't have children that have melanin or normal pigmentation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true. So if I were to marry someone that does not carry a recessive gene, then none of our kids would have albinism. They would carry the trait, of course, but they wouldn't have it. And then if I were to marry someone that carried the trait, then there's a 50% chance that our children will have albinism.
Right.
So that's definitely a misconception. Um, there's more. Some people think that all people that have albinism have white skin, have white hair. That's not true. If you have an African background, like your parents are from African descent, then you will have some level of pigmentation. Like my hair, for example, like people that some people have like reddish, brownish hair too,
Mm-hmm.
that are African American. So yeah, that's definitely not true. There are some weird misconceptions that people have, specifically for people that live in Africa. They have some beliefs about people with albinism. So one of them is that people with albinism have magical powers. That of course is not true. It's just a genetic disorder. And it can be really dangerous for people because there are like witch doctors that will pay for body parts of people with albinism because they believe they have magical powers. So that's led to people dying or, getting legs and arms cut off. Also, there is the belief that people with albinism can cure like HIV, which is the same thing, like the magical powers thing. So that's led to rape, which is another unfortunate reality.
As a person, I mean, we all have different identities. So, as a person who has really three prominent identities, so you're a female, you identify as someone that has albinism, and then you're Black as well. And with everything that's going on in the world out here, how do we educate ourselves and prepare even like our children who are going to school and maybe seeing someone that they've never seen before, someone that's different, and having new experiences? How do we educate ourselves to have those conversations, or how do we even start those conversations?
I think it starts with the value that you place on human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, of course, like the belief that every human being is the image bearer of God. So I start off a communication or a conversation with a human being with that mindset that this person was created by the Lord, whether I understand, let's say they have albinism, whether I understand completely or they look a little bit different or whatever, like Jesus loves them. So I start off with that. I place value on the person. And then if they want to, talk to their kids, of course, starting off with that, but having an open dialogue, telling them like there's so many beautiful, amazing people in the world, and they're not going to all look the same. Mm-hmm. And also bringing them around people that are different, putting them in communities, multiracial communities, different around different ethnicities, even traveling is a really good thing, because like I said, sometimes we fear what we don't understand, and when the more interactions you have with people, the less fear there is, and the more open-hearted they are.
That's I like that you said focus. The first thing we should do is focus on that they're human beings. Mm-hmm. Because I think we can all start from that premise. Like, all of us are human beings. That's the thing we have in common. All of us bleed the same, whether people realize it or not. So yeah, thank you for that perspective.
Yeah.
So kind of a little bit of wrapping up. Is there other things or anything else that we did not address, or anything you want the people who are watching this video to know about people who identify with albinism, or people just in general? Is there anything else that you want the people to know about this topic?
I mean, I guess wrapping up, I would say that, for people with albinism, like, we're just like any other human being. There's nothing, we just look a little bit different. That's it. There's nothing to be afraid of, or, to be freaked out about. We're just like you.
So I know we're going to talk about some sites that you would like the people to view, and then like some other educational tools as well. But is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to share with the people?
Yes. So me and my sister have started a YouTube channel. It's called Fully Alive. So we'll be talking pretty openly about this subject as well. Saturday, June 13th is National Albinism Awareness Day. So I'll be posting a video on me and my sister's channel about just even more in depth about my testimony, about the ways that I overcame and how I'm still overcoming in the areas that I still, want to grow in. Mm-hmm. We're doing that. So keep a lookout for that. We'll have different videos on that. We'll have, fashion content, of course, like fun, cute video sister tags. And then we'll do a series on this.
Cute.
What?
I said, I see what you're wearing today. You look real cute.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try. But yeah. So yeah, we'll do fashion videos, some fun, cute videos with me and my sister tags. We're going to do a whole series on this. We'll probably also talk about race, and the, racial injustice and racial reconciliation. That's really important to me. As far as like talking about albinism more openly, like I said, I'll be sharing a video the day after this video posts about, more in-depth details about my testimony. And also I'll just be doing, other videos along that same, line of, like, I might have Brittany come on and share what it was like, growing up with me and being my sister, and how she was there for me. And also I might have my parents come and talk about, what it was like to raise me, the hardships that they went through. It'll just be a bunch of different things. I really want to see a geneticist just to see what my genes look like. We only have one in this city.
Really?
And we're in the middle of a pandemic, so she's closed. But yeah, one in this city. And her wait list is long. So I want to be able to talk to her and just see what that looks like biologically, and see if she has any just tips or advice as far as, like, there's certain diseases that come they're more common with people with albinism. So skin cancer, of course, is more common. So just seeing what she has to say and what I can learn, and how I can educate myself and other people through visiting with her. So that may be on the channel, hopefully. if I
Mm-hmm.
can get in at some point once Corona is gone. so, so my Instagram is Drea_Bianca. I'll be doing some modeling on there. So when I did Miss Black Kentucky, well, Miss Black USA, I was Miss Black Kentucky. When I did that, I did a couple of professional photo shoots, and it was so much fun, and I was actually really good at it.
Yeah.
If I do say so.
I'll add to what she's talking about. It's not just because she did Miss Kentucky or Miss USA when she was Miss Kentucky and she thinks it's fun. Like this girl right here, anytime we take a photo, a group photo, my wedding pictures, oh my gosh, she just shows up and it's like face, like serving face. And she's just acting normal. So
yeah,
definitely something you need to explore.
yes, so I'll be posting some photos on there of me just modeling that Corona creativity. Got Brittany picking up a phone and making it work. So yeah.
Okay, so just to wrap everything up, can you share some information about how we can learn more on this topic?
Standing voice, which helps people in Africa with albinism. And it helps them get like access to education, because sometimes they can get like pushed out or bullied out of their schools. It advocates for them. It just spreads awareness, so that some of the stigmas are gone. Sometimes people in Africa also have a hard time getting jobs if they have albinism. The National Organization for Albinism and Hypopigmentation is a really good resource, that it has just almost pretty much everything you can think of, for like more information about albinism. What is albinism? Ways to connect if you have albinism. Ways to connect with people in your city or your state. That's a really good resource. Like I said, Standing Voice is a great one. And just during this time for the National Albinism Awareness Day, I'm really wanting and asking people to donate to Standing Voice, because of course, of all the atrocities that are happening, unfortunately, in Africa, they are a voice that's helping be a voice for the voiceless. So yeah, definitely check those two sites out.
Well, Adria, thank you so much for engaging in this conversation and really leading the charge on this. This is a topic that does need to be heard because, in my opinion, I don't really hear much about it. But we do have a lot of people that we are now seeing that identify with albinism, a lot of celebrities and things of that nature. So I'm so happy that you're at the forefront of your movement, whether you realize it or not, and that you're speaking on this issue and sharing your story. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, sis.
For everyone that is watching out there, again, this topic does not end here. If you want to continue the conversation, please comment below in the comment section. We will respond responses to you guys' questions. Let me also know what you want to see next. Like there's so many topics I know I want to do, but I know there's so many topics that I haven't even thought of that I would love to engage others in conversation with. So let me know what you guys want to see next. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so you do not miss out on any other future videos. Please follow Adria and her sister on their page. That will be posted on this video as well. And like this video. And again, thank you for watching.